Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to the Hodl Boomer Podcast, the Bitcoin podcast for seekers. What does that mean? Well, I'm a boomer. I'm a little bit old, which probably means I came to Bitcoin late, and I'm a seeker. I'm someone who looks for truth, both in my faith and in how I see things revolving around Bitcoin and money. Right now, sentiment in the Bitcoin world is ugly. The price is down. My DMs and inbox are full of worried seekers. I want to reassure you, this is exactly the moment to slow down, breathe, and learn something instead of panic selling, for heaven's sake, or doom scrolling. My DMs have been asking me the question, and I've answered this in person too. Can't someone just turn Bitcoin off? Seems like kind of a silly question, but it's really grounded in facts and things they've seen before. So I'm going to give you a short answer up front. No, Bitcoin can't be turned off. There's no single person or government or company or bad actor who has an off switch. I acknowledge that this sounds like kind of a wild claim because, heck, everything can be turned off, right? But I'm going to spend the rest of the episode proving it, not just asserting it. I know, that's what they all say. So let's actually look under the hood. There's two terms which I'd like for you to become familiar with. You may think you already know them. Term one is a ledger. I'll explain what a ledger is in plain, everyday language. It's just a record book. Your grandmother, or maybe you, balanced a checkbook. Your check register was a ledger. Every transaction gets written down, recorded, hopefully accurately, and the bank has another ledger, a separate ledger. When you reconciled your checkbook, occasionally you found mistakes. That's what a private ledger does, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. The second term is the blockchain. You've heard that. I'll explain that Bitcoin's ledger isn't just sitting in one place, in one building. It's not controlled by one company. It's copied across thousands of computers worldwide, tens of thousands actually, and every copy has to agree before anything gets added into the blockchain. Now, why call it a blockchain? It's limited to a certain number of transactions, and next week I'll show you the blockchain and show you how this works, but it's limited in size. For every 10 minutes that passes, a new block occurs. And actually, when the block gets full and when it gets verified by nodes, hang with me a minute, then it gets added to the blockchain. Once it's added to the blockchain, it can never be erased. It's immutable. Imagine your town clerk keeps the property records. Every single neighbor on your street had an identical copy of the property records, and they all had to sign off before anything changed. Good luck erasing that. That is a public blockchain. Many people see the same data at the same time and confirm that it matches absolutely. That's what a node does. And we'll talk more about nodes next week. But that's really the comfort that you have, is that this public blockchain is immutable. It's very difficult to change. These two concepts are the foundation of everything we're about to cover. Get it? I hope so. So if you are comfortable with the concept of a checkbook or a paper ledger, just follow me in our discussion here and think about that ledger being private versus it being public. The private ledger is mistake prone. It can be prone to manipulation. It can be prone to fraud. Lots of things can happen to a private ledger. When the ledger is out there in the public, everyone can see it. Everyone can verify it. So there's 7 characteristics of why not only Bitcoin can't be turned off, but why I consider it to be safe. It was designed with specific properties baked into it from the start. This isn't an accident or marketing. These were careful engineering choices. I'm going to walk through each of them in plain language. And please know, there's nobody in charge of Bitcoin. The rules, if you will, exist on those things I mentioned called nodes, and those nodes verify all of the transactions on the ledger and thus in the blockchain. So that's the first concept we want to talk about, immutability. What's written, once the block is published or once it's in the blockchain, it can't be rewritten. It stays written forever. Old transactions can't be erased or edited or in any way revised. That record is permanent. The Bitcoin blockchain is immutable. Second attribute, open source. There's no smoke, no mirrors, no secret rooms. The code is public. Anyone on earth can read it, study it, verify it. There's no they hiding something in the back. They can't possibly change the code without all the node runners going along with the code change. I'm going to take a slight detour here with me for a moment. Just stick with me. Right now, there is being discussed on all of X and everything else, something called BIP 110. What is that? That's a business improvement process or business improvement protocol. And it's a proposal that basically says they want to limit the data that can be attached to a financial record or a transaction. Some people are for it. Some people are against it. Most of the people that I conversate with, that doesn't make any sense. Most of the people I have conversations with say, Bitcoin is really a financial transaction register. And pictures of your cat don't belong on the Bitcoin blockchain. While that's absolutely true, the purists say the Bitcoin blockchain should be controlled through incentives. So there's an argument going back and forth. What does this mean to you? Well, nothing. Doesn't mean anything to you. Not right now. BIP 110 is going into a 1-year trial period if it passes early next month. But if you're in the middle, you don't really know which way you want to go, then just do nothing, because nothing's going to happen to your Bitcoin. It just has to do with what can be attached to the record. Okay? Enough of a sidebar there. Third attribute, Bitcoin is verifiable. Anyone can check the ledger. Every transaction, ever. You don't have to take anyone's word for it. Now, what can you see when you check the ledger? A bunch of numbers. That's what you can see. Every Bitcoin transaction takes 2 keys. One, your public key, which is a string of numbers, and the second, your private key, which you use to verify a transaction. You never, ever, 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 did I say ever, share your private key with anyone. Nobody. Except in cases where you're going to be transferring it out or you're ill and you got to plan for your inheritance. Those are just some of the exceptions, but those are very, very carefully controlled. So what do you need to check the ledger? Well, you need to access the blockchain, and we'll talk again about that next week. The next attribute causing Bitcoin to be safe. It's trustless and it's permissionless. By trustless, we mean this. You don't need to trust a bank, a government, a tech company, your brother Bob, your sister. You don't have to trust anybody to transfer your wealth. You don't need anyone's permission to send Bitcoin to anyone else. Have you tried to send money internationally recently? Why does it take 7 days at least? Why does it take any time at all? Bitcoin can send it in 10 minutes, any amount of money to any person, as long as they have a Bitcoin wallet. It works whether or not someone in authority, a banker, approves. It's simple. It's the way things ought to be. That leads me to the fifth attribute, peer-to-peer. What this means is there's no middleman. There's no settlement between banks. There's no settlement between credit cards and banks. There's no third person anywhere. It's you and another person, and you can call another person an entity. That's it. You and your intended recipient. That's all. Sixth attribute is decentralized. This one is simple yet difficult to understand. There's no headquarters for Bitcoin. There is no www.helpmewithmybitcoin.com. There's nowhere you can go. You simply pay attention to the rules and you do your transactions. There's no CEO. There's no server room to raid. The network lives everywhere and nowhere at once. Estimates are that there are tens of thousands of Bitcoin nodes now. And nodes are really just the record keepers, if you'll think of it that way. Seventh attribute, proof of work. To add anything to the ledger, I mentioned moments ago, when you look at the blockchain and you see a block being built, about every 10 minutes it's built and then published to the network. To add anything to it, miners have to do real world computational work. It's what they do. And it's what makes cheating so expensive. It's essentially irrational. If a Bitcoin miner wanted to cheat and publish a non-real transaction, they not only would have to convince themselves that they should publish this set of codes, but they should also convince everyone else in the world to accept these fake codes at the same time. It's very expensive and essentially irrational. There's no reason to do it. After walking through these seven, and you'll probably want to review them, I put all this together and you start to see why the question, can Bitcoin be turned off? It doesn't quite work. Where would you go to turn it off? Who would you call to turn it off? There's one exception to this, and that is if you don't hold your keys in self-custody. Now, I realize many of you are seekers, brand new to Bitcoin. Maybe you've begun to dip your toe in the water a little bit and you're leaving your coins on an exchange. That's okay for the moment while you're learning. But you need to get it into a hardware wallet. We'll discuss that again next week as well. We'll discuss nodes and we'll discuss hardware wallets, cold storage wallets. And this is the ultimate way you want to hold Bitcoin. Why should you worry about that right now while the Bitcoin price is bouncing around 64, 65,000? Well, if you go back a few years, people would be thrilled at 64 and 65,000. It's down, but it's down from 120 something thousand. Those of us that have lived through some cycles, don't worry about the price. It is going to increase. It absolutely will. We just are concerned with putting our money into an asset that can't be inflated and can't be depreciated. You've probably watched other of our episodes and know why we say this. So what's the summary here? The summary is that Bitcoin is safe because of its original design. Whether Satoshi Nakamoto was a person, who knows? Or whether he was a group of people, or whether he was the CIA, it doesn't matter. Cat's out of the bag, and it works, and it's immutable, and it can't be screwed with. There are a couple of things we'll talk about when we talk about nodes, that things that are used to scare you and things you shouldn't really be scared of. You have your own ability to make choices with Bitcoin. So a word on faith, and I want to be careful here because I don't want to insult or alienate anybody that doesn't believe in the Christian faith. But I will say that these attributes we just discussed, they share a similar structure in some very meaningful ways. First of all, an immutable truth. It's open. It's a public text that anyone can read and verify. It's a record of history that nobody owns, but everyone can access it. A system that doesn't require a human institution to mediate between you and what you believe. Now, while I say that, we're very popular in churches, and churches are very necessary to grow faith, but it doesn't require anything but you in your relationship with Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. So this isn't a sermon, and I won't make it that. It's just an observation that might land differently for those of you listening who come from a faith background, with which a lot of our seekers do. I just find this very interesting, and I'd probably dig in at a future date. So let me bring it home for you right now. Yes, currently the sentiment is very bad. The price is down a bit. It's hard to be upset about 64,000, but the network is running. The ledger is still intact. It's still being added to every single day. Not one characteristic on that list of attributes I just shared with you have changed a thing. For seekers who are new and nervous about getting involved in Bitcoin, the fundamentals have not moved. What's moved is the price. Price and value are not the same thing. I will say that friends of mine at the Bitcoin Way, Tony specifically, he gets pretty vocal about people attributing a dollar value price to Bitcoin. He says, why do you want to measure it in that worthless paper? And he's in part true. Bitcoin, it's not going to happen overnight, but it will replace the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. And it's such an amazing and early time for you to get in and talk about this. I will talk about the perception of the low price right now. Bitcoin goes through this, periods of low sentiment. There historically, when hodlers, folks like me and hopefully you, do our most important learning, and sometimes our most important stacking. I'll remind you all what the Hodl Boomer podcast is here for. Not to tell you what to do with your money. I am not a financial advisor, and I challenge you to research everything I'm telling you on your own and see whether or not it rings true, so you know what you're dealing with. But I will say that putting some of your assets in Bitcoin right now and then not paying attention to it for a while is one of the best things you can possibly do, especially if you're a little bit older like me. You're probably thinking about your legacy, and this is a really good time to think about it. So, sharing with you what I see, you make your own call. As I mentioned, the next episode is going to be about nodes and about wallets. That's Michael Saylor is clicking into my computer and trying to see if I'll make an investment. There he goes again. I'm just kidding. It's not Michael Saylor. It's somebody else. Where was I? Next week, we're going to talk about nodes and we're going to talk about wallets. We're going to go a little bit deeper. What are they? Why do they matter? And why some of you might actually want to run a node. It's more approachable than it sounds, I promise. Quick word before we go. I will plug our sponsor, hodlandtees.org. There you can buy Bitcoin gear. You can support the channel, support us. If episode like today gave you something to chew on, head over there. See if you can find a t-shirt to wear and represent. And certainly give us a like, give us a follow. We would certainly appreciate it. We love all of you. We appreciate you. Keep stacking sats and stay humble. Bye-bye.